These people, they don't belong to us. They belong to the Lord. And the Lord has a different vision and mission for everybody. Trying to look within and say, okay, I know what I want, but what does God want? And how do I, once again, put aside what I'm focused on? Because I have the tendency to do that too, where I'll get hyper focused on one thing. And it's just drive. So I think it's very easy in business to lose sight of the human side of it and just focus exclusively on success or focus on trying to move the needle forward. And it can be a heavy burden if you're not constantly going back and saying, all right, Lord, like, I know you're with me. I know you can take some of this burden, and I'm going to give this up to you. And so I think for me, most recently, it's been about accepting that there's things that I'm not going to be 100% good at, and letting go of perfectionism and letting go of trying to do everything right, and just saying, even when I mess this up, the Lord is He's going to accept some of this. He's going to show me grace, and He's still going to provide and show up. So that's been really recent for me, even within the last 30 days.
Yeah. All right. Welcome back to That Christian Business Podcast. I'm so excited. This is our second episode, and we're going to jump into some similar topics to our last episode, as well as some new ones. And I'm really excited because today I have with me Emmitt Terrell. And I'm just excited because he's a good friend of mine. He is a gym owner. He owns Level 6 Training in Fuquay Arena. And we're going to talk through a bunch of different things of your past in running this business, how that came about, and talk through some of the challenges of being faithful in our businesses and stewarding that well. So first, just give us a little quick snippet about Level 6. How did that come about? Why do you own a gym, and what does that look like?
Why do I own a gym? First of all, it's a great business. Love being able to serve and help people. So I think that's been a lot of my calling since a very young age. And when it comes to Level 6 specifically, I've always known, probably from the time I was 11 or 12, that I wanted to own a gym. I don't know what it is. I don't know if God put it on my heart or my brain, but even in middle school, I remember sitting there thinking, man, one day I'd really love to have a place where people come and they can focus on their health. And it's not centered around some of the activities that are social now, which is drinking and eating. So a place where people can come together and do something that's healthy and hopefully boosts their health as well. And I've known that for a long time. With Level 6, we're a private training studio. So that means that we do group fitness classes, we do one-on-one training, semi-private barbell training, but every activity is led by a professional instructor. So there's not really an open gym. We don't have a lot of people just coming in there doing treadmill work or anything, mostly because we don't have treadmills.
That would make it hard.
That would make it a little bit tough. But everything's guided by an expert, and every time you come in, you're gonna have a great workout, and hopefully you leave every day feeling better than when you walked in. And that's one of our goals.
That's amazing. So, for those of you who can't tell, you're probably thinking that I was a college football player by my mass size, but it was actually Emmitt. I know he's much smaller than me.
That's right.
But you went to Cornell, played football. And what did you study while you were there?
So at Cornell, they didn't have necessarily an exercise science track or a clear biology track that I was interested in. So I actually studied nutritional sciences at Cornell. And I remember even in college telling some of my teammates, some of my friends there, that I wanted to get out and own a gym and do performance training and all of that. And, they're going to work on Wall Street or become lawyers or doctors. So it was pretty funny, the reactions I would get when I tell people I'm at an Ivy League school pursuing opening a gym.
So you already knew when you were going to Cornell that starting a gym and getting the degree was aimed towards that end.
Right.
And that's accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate. And, the dream has certainly taken twists and turns. But even when I was looking at going to college, I really wanted to get into a program where I could learn nutrition. And I really think, Greg, that my love for nutrition and food really came from a place of wanting to understand how to eat well so that I could continue to be healthy and still enjoy food. So it actually started from just my love of food, and then that kind of parlayed itself in, okay, how do I eat to prepare my body and my mind for athletic performance, because that was obviously very important to me during that season of my life. And then just passing around, I remember even in middle school, writing diet plans for my friends, trying to help them lose weight if they're on a weight loss journey. In 8th grade, I wrote one for one of my teachers. So and I don't know precisely why I was so interested in doing that, but it was just something that I think God called me to be a level of passionate about. And then being able to pair that with the academic pursuit at that time, I think was great. And he led me right to where I needed to be at Cornell at that time. So
yeah. Now, were you always as big? Like,
yeah.
Did you start when you were young? Did you already know that you were going to be a bigger guy?
That's a great question. I was actually a really skinny kid growing up, Greg. Okay. And there was one year in particular before I hit puberty where, I kind of let it go. I was into the Oreos and the Pop-Tarts and the spaghetti and all that good stuff that kids should have some of that stuff and get exposed to it. But I think I might have gone a little too far. And so I got a little fluffy that year. And then I kind of discovered working out and fitness, and also discovered the relationship that food has with the body, and that eating the right things can nourish you from the inside out. And believe it or not, that was even at that young age, I had to draw on that line of connection between, okay, what I'm putting into my body actually influences the way I think, the way I feel, and then, more appropriately, like, hey, my long-term health and the way I look and all of that. So it was kind of a discovery at a young age.
So now you have a gym that is primarily focused. I mean, it has some of a youth athlete side, and you do some training to help those who want to get to that next level of athletics. But it's focused more on people who are 30s, 40s, in that middle stage of life. Yeah. We won't use middle age because maybe that'll offend someone.
Yeah, right. Call me middle age, Greg.
Yeah. Don't worry. I'm upper middle age. So when you were thinking about the gym from a young age, like, what you're doing now in the gym different than what you had thought, or does it kind of fit?
It's completely different. Yeah. When I was young and starry-eyed, I really thought I was going to go to school and then just get out and train guys who were leaving college football and going to play in the NFL. Then I quickly realized when I got to become a professional trainer that those type of athletes really only train for 10 or 11 weeks outside of their collegiate program. And so if you're thinking rationally about business, you're saying to yourself, okay, what am I going to do the other 10 months of the year that makes sense, that can help people, that can serve? So my dream quickly pivoted from, I'm just going to work with guys going into the NFL and be, one of these elite performance trainers to, wow, I really enjoy working with everybody. And I love getting to meet people from different backgrounds and walks of life and age groups and physical limitations or physical prowess. So the dream really changed quite a bit, honestly, when I got into the field and realized, okay, here's the dream, and then here's how it matches up with reality. And then saying, okay, how do I make this work? And honestly, I feel really blessed to be able to still hold on to and do some of the performance training, as you mentioned, with those young kids, because that's such a special time in their life. And so I just think that being able to be a figure and hopefully like a good role model and like someone that can kind of guide them through and almost hold their hand in a way of, hey, I went through this, I know where you're at, and hopefully give them insights into what it looks like at the next level to prepare. And so kind of just hopefully being some of that guide for them in some ways, even outside of the physical training and the weightlifting and all that.
Yeah. So for someone listening to this episode who has always been curious about the fitness space, curious about opening a gym, doing training, what practical advice would you give someone who's just wanting to get started? Where do they start?
I love that. Start small. I think would be the first thing that I would say. The biggest thing, at least for me, from my experience, when you start a business and get into it, is really trying to limit your overhead costs as much as possible when you get started. I've seen it time and time again. People go take out a big loan, they have a big dream, big vision. They want to get the best looking gym ever. They want to have the best facility. They want to have the best equipment, the best paint, the best decor. And they get confident because they have that money in that form of that loan, and they say to themselves, cool, I'm going to build it, and then they will come. And in a lot of cases, it's better just to start small and then piece by piece work on that aesthetic, piece by piece work on, making and refining that dream into something that you're proud of in terms of like the physical space or where you're at. So I would just say, just start small. And I think it's so hard in the fitness industry because there's a lot of passionate trainers they get into it. They have a great client base. They have 10, 15 clients. They're paying them, but it's just not enough money, they feel, to go out and take out a lease or get a commercial space and really start and put their foot out there. So I would just say look for opportunities to rent space from somebody, and then hopefully use that as a springboard to find a physical location. And like I said, guys, just start small, because your operating budget is going to control a lot of your ability to be profitable, but then also, the stresses of having a high overhead and worrying if you're going to make rent or payroll, if you have other trainers. It allows you to focus more on the clients.
Yeah. And that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So looking back at your degree, if you had to go to college all over again and get a degree that would best serve the business you have now, would that be the degree, or what else would you consider? Psychology,
Greg.
Psychology?
Yes, because in this line of work, and I think every trainer listening to this can attest to, you get to spend time with so many different types of people. And I think learning to meet people where they're at is the defining trait and characteristic of someone who separates themselves from being a good trainer to an excellent trainer.
Yeah.
And so that really is a pursuit in psychology, in terms of, hey, how do I really connect with this person authentically, show them that I care, and then ask them to do hard things, which is the day in, day out. Hey, you're going to show up, you're going to work out really hard for an hour, you're going to push your body to an uncomfortable zone. And then on the other side of that physical effort, there's just a lot of emotions for people sometimes. People are carrying things they don't outwardly display. And some of that will come up in training just because you're pushing yourself to be uncomfortable. So I would actually say probably learning more about psychology and human behavior. And I did have a little bit of that, but it's kind of an interesting thought, because and then it helps on the managerial side too, managing a team, working with people from different walks of life, different age brackets. When you have a diverse team like we do at Level 6 that I'm very proud of, we have all kinds of different people on our training team. Learning to navigate each person's personality and try to bring out what's best in them, that takes a lot of work and thought. Yeah. So thankfully I have some good mentors and people that I've become friends with that can help with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You'll have to introduce me sometime.
You might know this guy. You might know him.
So I started a segment in the last episode. And it's something that I want to continue as a tie through. Cool. I'm calling it Best, Worst, Most Edifying. So looking back at your entire span of jobs, from businesses you've run to your very earliest job. Okay. What is the best job you had? Something that you would do whether you got paid or not. Okay. If you didn't have to worry about money, of course. Okay. What's the worst job? Like something you would never do again, and why? Sure. And what is the one that helped form you most spiritually? Like has helped you grow the most in your faith? Okay. So let's start with best. Okay. And it could be the gym. Okay. That's a valid answer. Good. But you can also choose something else, like something you just have fun doing. Sure. Yeah, I would confidently say that the best job I've ever had is the one that I'm blessed to have right now. And just being able to go into the gym every day and, work with these kids, these young athletes in particular that are really trying to make that push for the next level and figure out, where their athletic ceiling is at. And just getting to know them, getting on their level a little bit, learning about some of their struggles, what they're going through at school, the decisions that they're trying to make, and then hopefully teaching them and guiding them in lifelong habits of weightlifting form, exercise. We talk about sometimes nutrition and helping them build the framework of habits that, if they're 14 or 15, it's going to benefit them when they're 25, when they're 35, when they're 45, and hopefully for the rest of their life. So I think that's what really lights me up in terms of jobs. That's amazing. Thank you. So worst. Yeah, the worst job. All right, this is a fun one, Greg. Yeah, let's see. So my very first job was I was a busboy at a local breakfast restaurant in State College, Pennsylvania called the Waffle Shop. Okay. And so this is an iconic breakfast joint in State College, PA. Any given Penn State football weekend, you get lines out the door the entire weekend. And I started there as a busboy, first job. So I would just remember coming home and smelling like
stale muffins and like spent coffee and just, having all that aroma on you, and your hands are all grungy from scrubbing up tables and trying to get caked on syrup off tables. I remember there was one day in particular where I was on my hands and knees with a butter knife scraping crushed Fruit Loops out of the carpet that some toddler had taken off their tray, crushed up, and kind of thrown on the ground as they're kind of eating everything. And so I just remember how challenging that was. And then I also remember getting to payday and realizing, man, if I'm going to be working this hard, this many hours, I'd like to see a little bit more return on my time for this, because that paycheck was, I was 15. So it was just funny. You put in a couple of weeks of work and your paycheck's like, $40, $50. You're like, dang, but hey, that's one of those jobs I'm in retrospect grateful to have a job that was bad like that, because it's kind of a wake up call of, man, I don't see myself doing this for a long time. So it was a good perspective to have. I think everybody should have a service industry job like that.
That's something we discussed in the last episode.
Okay.
I truly think everyone should work at a restaurant at some point.
Yeah.
It teaches you a lot.
It
humbles you.
It does. Check on that.
Yeah.
You're going to meet a lot of interesting people and see the highs of humanity, and then the not quite so highs of humanity.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Last week I shared one of mine, which I won't repeat too much, but essentially it was my first job as well, working at Legoland.
Okay.
Was not ideal. But
we haven't had this conversation yet, right?
But I was thinking about even before that, like before real jobs, I used to mow lawns for some neighbors.
Okay.
And we had these neighbors who hired me to mow their lawn. And it was basically dirt with a few tiny patches of grass and dog poop everywhere.
Oh, man.
So I'm just running a lawnmower over dried dog poop. And
we call that fertilizer,
I didn't even know why they hired me to do this job. It seemed pointless. I didn't do that one very long, but
I was gonna say,
if I could avoid dry dog poop mowing,
very, very understandable.
Then I'll avoid that.
Yeah.
So now let's go to the edifying side.
Sure.
So which job have you been in, or career or business, that has just really shaped and formed you spiritually, helped you to grow the most in your spiritual maturity?
Yeah. And I would honestly say my current role as a business owner has been the absolutely most powerful, edifying experience that I've gone through, because, man, I mean, I know that a lot of business owners can relate to this, but, when you go in there each day and, when you grow up, you think, okay, becoming the boss, becoming an owner means everyone else is just going to listen to what I say. I'm just going to rule by decree, and that's going to be that.
Yeah.
And you realize that that's really not true at all. In fact, you go to work now for your team. And so you're in service to them. You're responsible to these people that have signed up with you and said, hey, I kind of believe in what you're doing. I want to join alongside you and participate in this. And so for me, the mindset shift of, well, I'm going to be the boss and I'm just going to kind of run everything the way I want to.
Yeah.
And realizing these human beings are working their tails off. Yeah. And they're coming alongside you. Now you are responsible to them to show up, bring new ideas to the table, support them, kind of get in their corner, figure out what's going on with them inside their brain a little bit, and really just champion them, because their jobs can be hard too. We have people at level 6 that wake up at 4 almost every day. They go in there and work their butts off. And so you can't help but be grateful for that. And I think it's exposed me to, like I said previously, just navigating everybody's personality and trying to figure out how I can best support each individual person on our team, knowing that they're so different. Yeah. And then on the customer side, when you're in a customer service-based, business, I think it's important to constantly look within and say, all right, how am I going to choose to respond to this? I got a frustrated email, or I received a request that I don't know that I can honor. Yeah. And trying to just take time, be thoughtful in response. And I think the more conversations like that you have in business, the more it opens you up to, okay, what's truly the right path? And how would how would the Lord really want you to respond in this situation?
Yeah.
So just being thoughtful and trying to take a pause and say, okay, my flesh wants to react in anger or frustration or just like, oh man, I can't believe this is happening. Like, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
And then putting all that aside and saying, okay, like, how do I now use this position or this interaction to glorify what the Lord is trying to do? And so that's been a huge, and again, that's still happening in my life for me. Right?
Absolutely.
Because this is something you and I have talked about extensively over the last year. It's been a very humbling and, a process that I'm very curious about to just learn more about what, he's calling. So I would say, my current role.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I think what you were just talking about actually brings us to another point I was going to bring up later in the episode, but I think is fitting to what you were talking about with your team. And that's surrounding the idea of, as believers trying to build a business, we're called to be faithful in all areas of our lives, right? And have Jesus at the center. And one of the things I've found with trying to grow and scale a business is it's easy to view the employees, the team members, as people to help build your kingdom. Like, man, if I want to make more money, I need to bring other lower income people into my business so that I can scale things so that I can make more money. And that's not the whole thing, but like, it often comes down to you need people to achieve your dream and vision. But very easily, that can become the primary focus.
Right.
Is how do I make my thing bigger and better? And we're not thinking about the individual. And so I know through our conversations and something you went through recently and something that I've gone through, I wanted to just talk about specific situations where we've had to pursue the Lord in something that felt uncomfortable or even at times unfair. So I'll share mine first as sort of a catalyst.
Sure.
My first ever employee was such a blessing to my business. I was being coached at the time and trying to figure out how to hire my first team member. And he ended up coming on my team, I think 2 or 3 weeks before we were placed with our son, Ezekiel, through foster care. And so it was a huge blessing that I didn't have to bear the entire business while all of a sudden I have all these extra appointments, meetings, social worker meetings, going to the hospital, all this different stuff. And so it was a huge blessing to bring him on. And he was a young Christian man. He was married already, but like 20, maybe 21. He might have been slightly older. I can't remember. 21 years old. And I was doing everything I could. I wanted to hire a full-time video editor. That was my goal. Not necessarily to have someone come film with me or do all the other things, but he was very interested in the other sides. And so I brought him to as many things as I could. He came as my assistant. He would film with me. He would edit. I taught him everything I know on editing. And he had some skill sets too that were already built up. But I was like pouring into him years and years of production, knowledge, skill, and trying to find ways, how can I grow you and help you to thrive? And I was trying to think of him, but I was very much like, how do I grow him here? And he'd made like small comments about being interested in doing his own thing over time. But it was maybe a year or so in, as I was planning, I always try to be open with communication. I'm like, hey, if you ever are planning on like leaving, you want to do something else, let me know as soon as you can so that I can just plan for the future. And so he let me know that his goal was like 6 months. And so I started sending, like, I talked through like, what would it look like to set you up for success? And I sort of gave him, it was 5 days a week at first, and then it was 4 days a week, 3 days a week and sort of weaned him off of a salary to be able to do his business. And I was trying to do that, but there were times where it just hurt, right? Like it felt, and I never told this to him directly, but it feels like betrayal. Like, man, I know you could definitely get, like, he's very smart, very talented, very outgoing. I know he could get to the point where I was, but I expedited that. Like being able to sit under me, being able to take a salary, not have to worry about getting clients, all that, and just do stuff, really enabled him. So that was hard. And yeah, there was one moment too, afterwards where he, and I think it was one of my clients, reached out to him about doing some little video or something. And he didn't reach out to me to ask about that. Like, this is a client I've worked with for a long time. And so, you know, for me, it felt like being punched in the stomach, right? Like, we've had conversations specifically about how do you be faithful? Because I had a situation where he was working as my team member, and someone that we're friends with, one of his main clients, reached out to me for a quote. And I asked him, like, hey, this is weird. I got this request. I feel like I should probably reach out to him before I respond and just get his opinion. What do you think? Is that, oh, you definitely need to reach out to him. So I thought it was funny that, like, he had that perspective on one side,
right, but
not on the other. And so for me, that was a really forming experience because, you know, there's no reason, like, staying mad is stupid. So I can either do one of a few things. I can either reach out to him and just say, hey, I felt kind of betrayed by that. It felt like you're trying to take one of my clients that I've worked with for so many years and you didn't communicate with me. So I can approach it that way, or I can just let it go. And if more things come up, then have a conversation about how that doesn't feel respectful or kind. But when a lot of the decisions I had to make through the process of him saying that he was going to leave to him leaving, I had to stop and be reminded, like, he's not mine.
Right.
God has his own desires and things for him.
Right.
So number one, I shouldn't hinder that. And number two, I should be an advocate for him, longing for him to succeed. And so those were some of the things that I learned in that journey. But you went through something a little different. You had a sort of soft partnership with someone, nothing in writing, correct?
That's correct.
And thought you were on the same page and got to a point where things started shifting. You were no longer starting to butt heads, and then he left and started his own company. So what was that like for you to go through that? And how did you work through that spiritually to not allow that to become a grudge or something that you held on to, but forgive and, like, truly care for his success and well-being?
Right. And to answer the first question, Greg, it felt like a punch to the gut.
Yeah.
You know, you work with someone super closely, you know them for a long time, you advocate for them, you introduce them to everybody you know, and to have it go sideways, it's extremely painful. And it's extremely humbling after the fact too, when you look back and say, cool, if this conversation had gone differently, if I had just known a little bit more, if I had just negotiated or maybe handled myself differently in retrospect, would things be different now? And so to your point about ultimately on a spiritual level, advocating for them and wishing them true success, and not just in a tongue-in-cheek fashion, but genuinely wanting them to succeed. It took me a little bit to get there, if I'm being honest. Now, that being said, you know, present day, you know, I obviously wish nothing but the best things, and I'm really excited to see that they're having success.
Yeah.
But I think for me, initially, it was a lot of going back over the years and trying to assess, hey, did I do things right? Or how do I not let this happen again? And so I think that with my current team, I'm, number one, way more involved.
Yeah.
And, having conversations and I think you're right, like allowing space, like to your point, these people they don't belong to us. They belong to the Lord, and the Lord has a different vision and mission for everybody. And so trying to look within and say, okay, I know what I want, but what does God want? And, what does God want for these people? And how do I, once again, put aside what I'm focused on? Because I have the tendency to do that too, where I'll get hyper focused on one thing. Yeah, and it's just drive. Or I need to, produce here. I need to show up for my team here, or I need to make these calls and make sure this client signs up. You get caught up in all that and you forget, like, these people care about you. They're your friends. Yeah. So I think it's very easy in business to lose sight of the human side of it and just focus exclusively on success or focus on trying to move the needle forward. And it can be a heavy burden if you're not constantly going back and saying, all right, Lord, like, I know you're with me. I know you can take some of this burden, and I'm going to give this up to you. And so I think for me, most recently, it's been about accepting that there's things that I'm not going to be 100% good at, and letting go of perfectionism and letting go of trying to do everything right, and just saying, even when I mess this up, the Lord is he's going to accept some of this. He's going to show me grace, and he's still going to provide and show up. So that's been really recent for me, even within the last 30 days. Yeah. So it's interesting though. The more you go along and the more you push into it, the more God shows up. It's like, whoa, you don't expect it sometimes. Yeah. So in the worst moments, and again, that was professionally one of the worst situations I've ever been through. Yeah. Extremely painful on a professional level, on a personal level, on a friendship level. It's amazing how he can show up in those moments, and he's like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be learning right now. Yeah. So it's another journey in development too. Yeah.
And I think something you mentioned in there as well that's crucial for these things that it's easy in the busyness not to do is to look retrospectively at things that have happened, especially when they're hard. And when we do that, we can look not only at what was my part in this and what could I have done better, but we should proactively look for how is the Lord working? How was the Lord working in that situation? Where was he in the midst of what felt like a hard season where maybe it didn't feel like he was there? God was there and he was in it. And so one of the things that was such a huge blessing for me was I had to figure out, all right, where's my next employee going to come from? And what does it look like to find the next person? And so I realized okay, I truly do want to hire purely a video editor for two reasons. Selfishly, a video editor is less likely to jump ship to try to run a full production company because they're just focused on the video editing. Right.
One element of it.
And second, I want to focus on who could I hire? I hired him as more of an entry level budget. I paid him a little more than he was making at another company, but it was my first employee. I tried to find an entry level, but now I was how can I find someone who is at my level of editing or better so that I can focus my skill sets and have someone who can bring extra value to our clients and pay a little higher than entry level. And so it was one of those days. So I won't give the whole story here today, but that morning I went in early to my studio I was being coached by this awesome guy named Kieran, Christian guy. And I get there at 7 a.m. before I normally start work. And I look over, and right next to the door, our window is shattered. And I open the door, and there's a boulder on the ground. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, I don't see too much messed up. And then I walk over. I built an office in the corner and put a lock on it. and that door was kicked in, and $20,000+ worth of video production gear was stolen. And I was just shocked. And I'll give more context to that story at some point, but that same afternoon, I get an email as I'm meeting with sheriffs, like dealing with all the logistics of being robbed. I get an email from this gentleman that I met at a foster care Christmas get-together with our Christian adoption agency. And I met this younger couple who was in the process, just starting the process to do foster to adopt. And I saw that they didn't have a kid with them. I'm like, I'm going to go over. We're like well through this process. Let me go see if they have any questions. And the guy I met, I hadn't talked to since, he's like, hey, I just saw your job posting on LinkedIn or Indeed, wherever I had it. I met you at this adoption event. I actually have a background in video editing, and I'd love to meet with you and see if there's a potential here. And it was one of those, like, you don't get too many like light from the cloud shining on the opportunity situations. But that was one of those ones, like, in a dark moment, not only am I trying to figure out an employee, but I just had all of our cameras stolen, all this different stuff. And it was like, God's like, hey, I'm with you and I'm going to provide for you. And so if you looked back, can you pinpoint any ways that God was providing for you or caring for you through that hard season?
Absolutely. And I have a similar testimony, actually. So obviously after that, soft partnership call, what you will, fell apart.
Yeah.
There's a huge need for new staff. We lost some other trainers that had gone as well. So we were in a different place, a time of change, a pivotal point.
Yeah.
And for the first time in business, I didn't know who to hire. I didn't know where to go. In the past, it had been, I would always connect with friends or people I had met and been able to see professionally.
Yeah.
And kind of evaluate how good they are at training. So this was the first time I was ever attempting to hire someone sight unseen, never met him before. So I did what anybody in 2024 would do and went on ZipRecruiter and Indeed and put a job posting up, and the first application came in, and it was this really professional, well-presented resume. And I said to myself, I'm going to give this young guy a call.
Yeah.
Let's see how this goes. Sure enough, I get on the phone. Guy picks up. His name is Brandon, by the way. Shout out to Brandon.
Yes, sir.
Real heavy country accent. And we just had this great conversation. And I got off that call and I remember distinctly thinking, this guy is awesome. He honestly even said himself, he's like, I don't know how things are going to go over. I got a pretty heavy accent. Like, I'll try my best. And just first of all, the way he presented himself on paper and the openness he had to trying something new that was way outside of what he had done before training wise.
Yeah.
I was like, I think I like this guy. So we brought him down, and you're just getting connect with Brandon and see his heart and, see the way that he was with the clients and how much he cares about every detail in the business.
Yeah.
I think that whole experience, and I mean, this was the first resume we got through Indeed or ZipRecruiter out of 20 or 30 applicants. So I think just having that phone call, and that was almost a way of feeling the Lord's hand on my shoulder, like he was patting me and saying, hey, we've been through some stuff here. There's been a lot of change, but it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
And I just remember that experience vividly because it was all happening in a matter of, feels like a whirlwind.
Yeah. I love that. So we're going to shift to a different subject. In this podcast, I'm all about not only going deep, but also just talking about fun and practical things.
Okay.
So I'd love to know from your perspective as a gym owner, trainer, overly scrawny guy,
Absolutely.
overly fit gentleman. One of the things I've noticed, especially for Christian entrepreneurs, is, man, they may be putting Jesus first in their business. They're putting Jesus first and focus on family. they're serving in their church and they're doing well and disciplined in so many areas.
Sure.
But the one area that can easily fall behind is health, right? Because it's like, man, I don't have time to go to the gym, or I don't know what to do when I go to the gym, or I just don't want to. Whatever it may be.
Common sentiment out there, right? I just don't want to.
And so I would love to hear 2 quick answers.
Sure.
One, why is it important for a business owner, an entrepreneur, to be staying healthy? Besides not going to the hospital. What are the benefits mentally, physically, showing up for family later? I'm sure there's things. And then after that, what are some simple practical things that someone who's not doing anything, this is me just over a year ago, who's not doing anything, where should they start to start pursuing a healthy lifestyle?
That's a fantastic question. In business, it's important we're always sharp mentally and acute and making good decisions and showing up prepared and energized. And I think foundationally, the best way to do that is through a very rigorous and applied health and fitness routine with consistent exercise and eating well. And when you look at it, you look at the research too, there's this special compound your body actually makes when you exercise called brain-derived neuroprotective factor. So it's BDNF is the acronym. Your body produces that when you exercise. And that has a ton of protective effects on the brain, on the nervous system. Along with endorphins creates a calming effect.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've discussed even in this show is the invariable stresses that you'll encounter as a business owner, as someone who's a manager. I think for me personally, and for a lot of people, exercise helps you create that space between stimulus and response. Something happens, a negative event, a bad email, a client cancels, you lose an invoice, you lose a job. Create the space before you respond thoughtfully. And I think exercise gives me personally the ability to do that and just try to take one half step aside from the emotions of the situation and say, okay, how can I thoughtfully approach this? So I think exercise, when done consistently, can improve that. And then just your cognition, your clarity, when you're in the flow of exercise, doing resistance training, your brain tends to work better. You have more endorphins. So you're naturally going to be less stressed out by those negative events. Those stressors are going to mean less on the ledger inside your body, because your body does keep score to some extent. Stress is stress, whether it's exercise, nutritional, life circumstance, health issue. Your body remembers all of that. And so your body interprets stress the same way from different areas. So I think it's key, because you have to make good decisions. You have to make them frequently. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And then when you make bad decisions, you got to own up to them and have the resilience inside of you to say, hey, I made a mistake. Let's fix this and get to that as quickly as possible. So I think exercise helps with all that. And there's a lot of emerging research that I'm excited about that's studying the link between traumatic memories and exercise, and how consistent exercise can help your brain start to reformulate those traumatic memories and help you move past things in your life that are holding you back. And that's more with aerobic exercise like running. But resistance training has a lot of value too. So I'm really interested about that research that's coming out. And then, beyond that, I think the benefits of exercise would just help you get better sleep. And then when you sleep well and sleep hopefully long enough, I know it's hard to get adequate sleep out there these days. There's a lot of demands on our time. You wake up feeling refreshed, and you can go to bed with a problem and wake up maybe with more solutions or just more energy to apply to those solutions. So I think in a nutshell, that helps.
And the cortisol is the stress hormone, correct?
That's correct.
That's reduced by exercise. Is that also accurate?
That is very accurate. In the short term, it's increased by exercise.
Okay.
But there's a really important relationship, especially for us men, between cortisol and testosterone.
Okay.
So it's something to do with the T and C ratio. I actually have to look up exactly what it is.
But
it's important to understand If you're chronically stressed out, you're not exercising, that's naturally going to have an effect on your testosterone levels as a man. Even for ladies too.
A negative effect, correct?
A negative effect, right. Even for ladies too, the cortisol consistently elevated, it's going to have bad health ramifications. You're going to feel you can't recover as well. You're going to have more pain. You're going to feel foggy, lethargic. And so even though short-term exercise is a stressor that will increase that cortisol spike, it allows your tissues to clear of that long-term and actually brings your baseline levels down.
Okay.
So it's good to know that it has a preliminary effect, which is going to spike it, and then long-term it's going to help temper that and modulate it over time.
Yeah.
And long-term you're going to be healthier because you're going to have better cortisol levels.
So on the practical level, when we started hanging out a while back, I was like, I'm not doing anything. We'd moved from California. I didn't have a gym membership. I don't know. I was just overwhelmed. And so I wasn't doing anything. I kept buying pieces of physical equipment. Like I bought a kettlebell, bought 35-pound dumbbells, and I do one time with it and leave it in a corner. I just couldn't motivate myself at home. But last year, I was like, I'm going to do 1 mile a day. And that was my start to doing something. And that actually had a lot of benefits. And it actually motivated me to get in the gym and work out again too, because I was like, now I'm starting to feel healthier. Mm-hmm. But for you, what would you say, especially if someone, hopefully their business is doing well enough that they can afford a gym membership, but if they can't afford a gym membership,
sure,
what is the best, easiest starting point to starting to live a healthier, more active life?
That's a great question. My one piece of defining advice I'd say for anyone looking to start would be just do something. Just do something. So if you can't afford a gym membership, if you don't have access to equipment or dumbbells or anything of that sort, get outside and go for a walk. And it seems strange coming from me as a gym owner, but I'm going to go to bat for walking. Walking is the best form of exercise that we have. And it's accessible to anybody around the planet at any time that has the ability to get out there and do it. So just that daily practice of movement is the best way to start foundationally, because it gets you in the state of, I'm used to dedicating 10 minutes. I'm used to dedicating 15 minutes. I'm used to dedicating 30 minutes to go out for a walk. And so you've already, from a habit level, established, okay, I have this definable period of time I've set aside to do something that's going to boost my health.
Yeah.
And I think most people, Greg, too, make the mistake of, well, I have to dedicate 45 minutes or I have to dedicate 90 minutes to go to the gym and get a great workout. You can do effective training protocols that are 15 to 20 minutes if you just do something. So I guess my advice out there to the listening audience is find something that excites you in terms of movement, whether it's riding your bike, walking. Start with something low impact that gets you genuinely excited to go do it, and start there. And for you, it was that running and that consistency of day after day, I'm going to go out and run a mile. And for you, it takes well less than 10 minutes. So shout out to Greg for his split times.
Not well less.
Shout out to Greg for his split times. But that's a 10-minute daily habit that you had that boosted your health, your longevity, and helped you tap into a lot of those things that we just talked about in terms of boosting your health. So start somewhere, find something that gets you going, and get outside. And even if it's just a 10-minute walk, it's going to be so much better for you internally. It's going to help you regulate your blood sugar. There's so many health benefits to walking, and mood regulation, by the way. So if you're a mood swing person or you get irritable, it's a great way to exercise too.
Yeah.
So start there.
Love it. So getting practical, what's one business book that has been most transformational that the listeners, those watching, should do? You have any? One
business book. Yes, I've read a ton. I'm trying to narrow down one of my all-time favorites, honestly, is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Okay.
It's a fantastic book. It's actually a work of fiction.
Yeah.
But the allegories and the metaphors in that book lends itself to so much wisdom for discovering, essentially what we talked about today too, Greg, which is your calling and like what you're being called to do. And the protagonist goes through, these series of events that helps him kind of uncover these hidden gems inside of him. And he realizes that all along he's had this kind of guiding hand with him. And I think there's a lot of parallels to that in faith as well. But that's a book that I love because it's written as a work of fiction, but it's so well written that it has parallels and applications to the stuff that we go through in daily life and like our journey with entrepreneurship and business.
Yeah.
So I love that book, The Alchemist. It's a good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So check out The Alchemist. Sweet. Yeah, I gave some last week. I'll have to think. I've read quite a few as well.
Yeah.
So I could probably add a new one each week. But yeah, this week I didn't come prepared for that.
We'll leave that as a mystery for the next episode.
Yeah. I'm thinking, oh man, I can't even remember the name of the book. Let me search it real quick. I think it was Joey Coleman. Never Lose a Customer Again was a book that gave me a unique perspective on
I need to read that book.
How to care for your customers and be more thoughtful. He even talks through practical stuff like gift giving. People are like, here, have a bottle of wine. And they drink it and never think of you again. Whereas if you think through something that it's like, I, for short term, had a putter company. Part of the idea was like, hey, gift a putter to someone. Every time they're out on the course and you engraved their kids' names on the putter, they're going to think of you and think highly of you. So this was kind of gave me some of those ideas of how to think more, not manipulative, but like lovingly towards people and gift giving and just building better customer culture. All right. So as we wrap this thing up, do you have any short, wild, funny, goofy stories of being a business owner? Anything that stands out in your mind? Or
oh man,
this was crazy.
Anything that comes to mind as a business owner. Okay, I have a kind of a funny story about a former employee that is borderline hilarious, and I think it fits with what we're talking about today. So I'm a person, I'm a boss of many chances, and this particular person had probably 2 or 3 instances where they failed to show up for a session with their client. And so I remember going into the studio and opening the barn doors and looking at the client who was waiting for this person at the time. And he proceeds to show me a picture on his phone of a Getty Images stock photo of a car with a flat tire. And that he had just been sent that by said trainer to say he wasn't coming. So the car in the picture was the wrong make and model for what this trainer had at the time. And I just remember looking at this individual and I'm like, I just don't think this is working out. So then I go to notify this employee that we will no longer be needing their services, and they changed their phone number. So I went through the previous 2 or 3 phone numbers I had to try to contact this individual, and they all came up, green. They weren't getting delivered. 5 days go by, haven't heard from this person, and on Easter Sunday, of all days, from a new number, I hear from this person, and they said, hey, I'm just reaching out to get my schedule for the week. And I said, you're never going to believe this, but I've been trying to get a hold of you. You're fired.
Man, that's wild.
So it was a crazy story. I mean, this person had like 5 different phone numbers during their brief employment. And it was just kind of one of those stories where just like, you're never going to believe this. The truth is stranger than fiction.
Yes. Oh, man. That's bold.
Yeah.
Let's just find a picture here.
Easter Sunday, coming back.
That was crazy. I'll share one short, silly story. I've worked with lots of businesses that are like up and coming. So like they're trying to grow, but they're still in that bootstrap stage. And I found very early on, and this is just everywhere in life, but like communication is so incredibly important. And
you said it.
We were going to go fly out to film in Austin, Texas. And I've traveled with a bunch of clients, but they wanted to like take care of all the booking stuff. Usually I do all my own booking. And we get there and one of the owners of the company just like, I want my own room. So I put you in with this guy who I've barely met, who is pretty sick. Like he's got this big cough, all this different stuff.
Oh no.
And like
roommates.
I'm just like, I barely even know this person. They're like 30 years older than me. And so I stay there with them. I do the whole thing. And then afterwards, I just sent a message and just said, hey, just to let you know, for the future, like, I do my own room. Like,
100%.
That's what we always do for projects. Like, I get understanding trying to save money and stuff, but like, future travel. And that was awkward.
Sure, that was a great conversation.
And that client ended up leading to one of my more challenging situations I've ever had to navigate in business. But I'll have to save that for another episode.
Ooh, cliffhanger.
Cliffhanger. I don't even know which episode that's going to be in, so it could be months from now. You'll have to stick around.
Tuned. Yeah.
But I'm trying to end every episode with scripture. So today we're going to read Philippians 4:12 through 13. Most of the time people just focus on 13, but I want to add a little context with 12. It says, now I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all things through him who gives me strength. So most of us focus just on that. I can do all things through him who gives me strength. But I love that context before. So for all of you listening, watching, who are struggling or thriving in your business right now, just remember that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And he's there. He's with us. Sometimes it doesn't even feel like it. But you have to look back at those moments when you have seen him, when you have felt him. And sometimes, like we did today, you have to look retrospectively to even see those. And yeah, hopefully this was an encouragement. Thank you, Emmitt, so much for coming on.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for having me, man.
And
been blessed.
We'll see you in the next episode. Have a great week.